Welcome to Re-Energizing Tips and Tools for Mamas. This week, our webinar is about nutrition, and I have Carol Pillar of Wholesome Approach. She is a holistic registered nutritionist. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks a lot for inviting me. I think it's great that you're doing these because so many people could use bits of advice, and it's a great way to get going.
And it's a good time to do it too. With COVID
Absolutely.
and the school year about to start, there's a lot of stress. And it's good to get some, even if people know it, to get a refresher of tips.
Definitely.
So tell me about your background and how you became interested in nutrition.
Yeah, I'm a registered holistic nutritionist. I studied at the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition right here in Ottawa, although they do have branches right across Canada. I've been helping clients with various health concerns for, I'm in my 7th year, which I can't believe that, but it goes so fast. I got interested in nutrition. Actually, I've always been interested in eating healthier and trying to make better choices that way, for the simple reason that it is a preventative way of avoiding illnesses and various things. But also, I had a period where a good friend of mine, I'd gone to school with her, and she called me up one day after we'd bumped into each other at a show, and she told me she had a brain tumor. And I helped to care for her in the next few, I guess she lived for close to another year, but helping out the family and helping and going, to be with her when her family couldn't. And she ended up passing away from a brain tumor. And that really shook me. That really said, wow, there's got to be, a better way to help support the body so that you can avoid things like this from happening. But also, within my own family, there's a lot of digestive and gut issues. So one of our family members has Crohn's disease, another with irritable bowel. My daughter is celiac. So it really became apparent to me that there was something not right in our particular system, and obviously partially genetic, but other contributing factors. And I really wanted to find a way to be able to help my own self and my family members through nutrition and through healthier lifestyle choices.
Nice. So, if there's one thing you could say about food, what would it be?
Well, absolutely. Nutritious foods are the basis of good health. And nutrition should always be a part of any kind of protocol or any, if you're going to see any other practitioners, nutrition really needs to be a part of that big picture. So I'm essentially a teacher, and, I try to help you as a client to understand how to nurture and support your body so that it can function properly. And of course we do this through diet is one thing, but also through, healthy, moderate exercise and moderate social habits, stress reduction, and, choosing less toxic products in your own home so that you're helping your body to stay clean, cleansed. So really that's part of that holistic approach where when I'm helping a client, I do look at a whole variety of things, not just their diet and what's going on with that.
As you're talking, I'm thinking about, the stuff I use to clean the house and my children and my pets, and I think it's something that we often don't think about.
Absolutely.
Is what we're using. Maybe we're eating healthy, but we're putting deodorant that's full of chemicals or aluminum, or we're spraying our environment with like Mr. Clean or whatever, like something that's going to have a high
effect on
fragrance, and that might, and we don't think about it for some reason. It's going to affect us.
Yeah, for sure.
So for moms out there who are feeling depleted or overwhelmed, what would you suggest as a holistic nutritionist?
Well, number one, I would really encourage you to understand, and this is where I can help you too, that, all of your symptoms or your illness or even genetic family patterns and traits going on that your diet, that any trauma in your life, any stress in your life, all of those things are the reason why you are where you are in your state of health, in your overall state of health. So, I try to look at your whole picture, and it can be very individualized or it can be a little more generalized, depending on whether you're really having issues. But ultimately, if you do find that you're struggling with low energy, lack of motivation, feeling overwhelmed, burnt out is a word you used.
Yes.
I get that. I totally get that. I'm almost 60. I raised 2 girls. I'm on what I consider to be my 3rd career. Get this mosquito out of the way.
Yes.
We're sitting in the great outdoors because
Yes.
that's absolutely the best for you. But, I have a part-time job as well as trying to keep a little bit of my nutrition business going. So, I absolutely get that there are times when you can feel overwhelmed. And when you're like that, you don't cope very well. So, one thing that's for sure out of all of that is that as you move through your life, things will always be changing. So, if you can keep that positive attitude as well, thinking that, I'm going to get through this, and there are always solutions. I'm very solutions driven when I try to help clients. Know that things will change again, and so you'll get through it and you'll move on to the next phase. Yeah. So, there can be lots of reasons why you might be feeling that you need to re-energize. So it's really important to understand the underlying causes. And like I said, work towards attainable and maintainable solutions, right? So many people I've heard, I tried this diet, I tried that diet, and it just doesn't work. Well, part of it is because if it's not maintainable, if it's too far outside of your norm, it's not going to work for you. And over the long term, you're going to end up not being able to stick with it. But, ask yourself these questions. Number 1, if you're feeling low energy and you're burnt out, are you doing too much? Number 1, are there places where you can reduce, or can you delegate? Do you feel like there's chaos in your environment? Often we end up becoming a little too materialistic, and there's too much stuff, and there's too many activities, especially if you have kids, too many activities. There's no actual space, either in your environment or in your time, to just wind down, right?
Yes.
And be calm.
Yeah.
So those are things you need to sort of ask yourself and try to get your head around. Another part of that, sometimes as a mama, and sometimes even if you're not a mama, you feel taken for granted. Yeah. And if you're not getting that appreciation or support, then it's easy to become overwhelmed, right? So, all of those things I've mentioned, and I'm sure there's lots more, they can leave you feeling stressed. And when your body's under a lot of stress, guess what? Your digestion does not work very well. So, it affects the microbes in your gut as well as how it's functioning. So it's really important to start supporting the body. And, one of the signs, if that's really happening to you, is if you're finding that you're reaching for caffeine or sugary treats just to keep going, that's not really a solution I would recommend. Short term, okay, but long term, doing that is actually going to deplete your energy even further. So that's not really a good choice. So here's a question. Do you eat meals at regular times? Are they mostly home-cooked, made with whole foods? So those are some of the things you need to really question and get to the root of why you're feeling that way before you start to try and look for a solution. Actually, you'll find solutions as you're starting to question yourself about that too.
I'm thinking about what you're saying. People who tried diets and they'll say it didn't work for me, but what you said before that is relevant in that if you're just doing the diet and you're not addressing all of the other factors, a diet alone isn't really, it's not going to make a difference.
No. It's always important to look at the whole picture, right?
Yeah.
And try to support the body. Because you can eat as much healthy food as you like, but if you're not digesting it properly because you're under a lot of stress because you have too heavy of a workload, for example, the two aren't going to balance each other out.
So what I'm hearing is that the basis of your interventions are basically supporting the body.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Supporting the body has to really be the first step for you to be able to handle everything else, right? Remember this. You are your body's keeper.
Right.
Nobody else. So it's a point that, all too often we don't really think about that. We figure, I've eaten something, I'm fine. I can go. But really, it's what you're eating. It's the state that your body is in to accept that food. And ultimately, how well you're digesting, absorbing, and eliminating that really is going to determine your overall health. Right? So those three things, super important. Because all of that, if that's working, then your brain is going to work properly too.
Right.
Because we have to feed the body to feed the brain.
Right.
We have to feed those microbes in our gut for them to message the brain. There's tons of research been done. This is my favorite subject, so I can easily go off on a tangent talking about gut health, but I'll leave it at this point. Come and see me if you want to know more. But
teaser.
Yeah, ultimately, supporting the body is super critical for helping the brain to work. Yeah.
Right. That was good. I like your self-restraint. So, tell me about, you've kind of hinted at it, but tell me about the importance of self-care.
Self-care. Well, if you're a mom, you're no good if you can't function. Right?
Yeah.
So, finding a way to allow time for self-care is really important. But number one, you need to maybe look at your perspective on what that means for you and whether you're actually doing it. Taking care of self. So here's some questions for you. Is there balance in your life, in your diet, in your activities? Is there giving and is there receiving? Yin and yang, right? Balance. Think about that. Do you feel peace ever? Because it's important to have that as a part of your day, every day. Having that spirit for life and living.
Yes.
Having that love. Living with grace. Those things all create... Sorry about the motorcycles. Those things... Yeah, here I'm trying to talk about peace and the Harley.
Peace and quiet.
Super important for helping digestion again, but also helping to contribute to the balance, right? Is having a bit of peace at times. Do you have focus? Do you have a purpose? I mean, obviously as a mom you have the purpose of raising your children and you're hoping that you're doing the best you can do, right? But sometimes when we're overwhelmed we kind of lose our sense of focus. So it's fine-tuning what's important to you. And I'm hoping that one of those what's important to you things will be, I have to do self-care and support my body. Right? Expressing gratitude daily helps you to have that focus and helps you find a bit of peace and helps with the balance. Right?
And helps attract more stuff to be grateful for.
Absolutely. Allowing time for self-interest. Now, it's harder when your kids are young, but, don't at any point think that engaging in self-interests, like what Anne can offer in terms of art, therapy, don't always think it has to exclude the kids, because creativity, being creative, absolutely can include the kids. And I'm going to talk a little bit more further on about including the kids in stuff. So overall wellness, it's not just about food. There's certainly more to life than having things, right? It's looking at what's going on inside of you and focusing on that self-care, which Tricia kind of touched in on one of your other videos.
Yes. So what can people do? What are some things people can do in their own kitchen?
Oh, absolutely. My favorite place. Although I admit there's times when I get burned out and I don't want to be in the kitchen too. But firstly, I hope that in terms of looking at supporting the body and trying to help yourself to be able to cope and re-energize, I'm hoping that first and foremost you don't mind being in the kitchen and cooking home-cooked meals. So this, of course, means using whole foods rather than pre-made, pre-packaged, possibly processed foods. Obviously, in our environment, you can't 100% get away from processed foods. I mean, we all eat crackers, right? We all eat bread. That's a kind of processed food. But it's choosing the nutrient-dense ones that are important. Generally, the problem with the processed and the pre-made packaged foods is that they rely on sugar, salt, and sometimes not the greatest choice of fats for the flavoring. And those actually can be quite addictive. So switching from that can take a little bit of practice. Invariably, too, they contain plenty of additives. And generally, the additives put in are for shelf life alone. They have nothing to do with nutrition and supporting the body. And generally, the body has trouble dealing with the additives. Preservatives, additives, flavorings, fake flavoring, MSG, things like that. The
Colorings too.
Yeah, absolutely. The body has real difficulty in processing those kind of things, and they're contributing to a sort of overload on your system, not being able to work very well. So, I don't want you to right off the bat start thinking, this is going to be more work for me because she's suggesting I'm cooking in the kitchen. But, you don't have to do complicated, fancy, detailed recipes. Good, wholesome, healthy eating can be simple meat and vegetables. Steam them, eat them raw. Simple. You don't have to get complicated. What I try to encourage you to do, though, always is think nutrient dense and the quality of that food. So I'm going to talk, a fair amount about what that means in terms of whole foods. Whole foods generally mean foods that come in their natural form, like a carrot.
Like you brought me?
Right. I brought some fresh kale and some homegrown tomatoes.
Her tomatoes are way better
for
than
Anne.
ours.
So that's what I mean
Beautiful.
by whole food. I know where it's coming from. I know my garden has no pesticides or sprays. I use good old, well-aged horse manure on there. So hopefully the ground is full of nutrients, and therefore my food is full of nutrients. So when I talk about whole foods, fruit and vegetables, perfect example. Try to eat or buy organic as much as possible. And there's twofold reasons for this, which, that's a whole other talk really. But number one, sustainably grown foods, such as organic foods, mean there is more nutrition in the food. Because commercially grown foods, the soil is depleted of nutrition. So the plants can't take it up. Plants need to take up nutrition from the ground in order to make vitamins. So if there's not enough coming up out of the ground, then those foods are going to be lacking. So I say organic as much as possible, and it's nice to see that there are so many more choices available now. I admit I shop at Food Basics, and in that store alone, there has been an amazing increase in organic. They've rearranged the store so that all the organics together, but organic carrots, organic celery, organic blueberries. You can find so many more choices in terms of organic. And yes, it is a little more expensive, but, organic bananas, I did a comparison one time. I said, well, if I'm buying a bunch of bananas and they're only 67 cents a pound, how much more is roughly the same size a bunch of bananas at 97? Well, I'm talking like 40 cents difference,
right.
50 cents difference, okay, for bananas. Other things, yeah, like I still kind of refuse to buy store-bought organic peppers because I don't want to pay $2 a pepper. Right? Yeah. So you make your choices, but just remember that they're cleaner and they're more nutritious. So even if it's organic, wash everything. Wash it, even if you're going to peel it, because you're touching that, right? And those residues are going to be on that. We don't want that in our body.
What do you wash it with?
Generally, I just use lukewarm water. You can do a little tiny bit of dish soap. There are things online saying you can use vinegar, but I personally don't think vinegar will remove the residues as much as it would remove bacteria.
Right.
But one surely would hope that our food doesn't have bacteria on it.
You would hope, yes.
I mean, bad bacteria, okay?
Yeah.
We need to specify. There are good bacteria and bad bacteria. Right. So yeah, there are choices there, but make sure you include all colors of the rainbow, because those colors are also providing nutrition, right? So including your dark leafy greens, including those rich dark blueberries, including things like pomegranate that, although it comes from far away versus local, extremely rich in nutrients. So one of those good power foods. Whole grains, of course. Best source most people reach for are whole grain breads or whole grain crackers or cereals. If you're choosing those, just whole grain cereals, make sure you choose the low sugar ones. There is such a variety, but you can buy some pretty good quality ones. Nature's Way.
Yeah.
Nature's Way.
It's harder to find it at the grocery store.
Yeah.
I have looked for sugar-free at the grocery store and I didn't find it.
As long as it's lower in sugar.
Yeah.
This is always an issue, right? But you can get your whole grains easily through, cooking your own oatmeal from scratch. Occasionally cooking brown rice or barley or quinoa. All of those are really nutritious whole grains. And they're easy to cook. Put them in a pan with a bit of water. Always rinse them first.
Yes. What's on them? Just too starchy?
They contain things called saponins, which are harder for the body to process. So that's the same with legumes like beans and lentils too. If you're using canned version, you should always really rinse them thoroughly.
Yeah.
If you're cooking them from raw, then the rinse and cook a bit, and rinse again, and does the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Helping you do it. Because as we know, beans can be a little hard on the digestion and create some gases,
especially
but that will help to reduce that a bit.
If you have an issue with your gut already.
That's right. So yeah, I absolutely mentioned legumes because often in the kitchen people tend to forget about that, but legumes are so easy to add to so many dishes, right? Hummus is made with legumes, of course, with chickpeas. Extremely nutrient dense and lots of fiber, so certainly good for you. Meat, of course, try to buy it in its natural form. The processed sliced luncheon meats tend to always have nitrates in them or other things, and if you've ever watched any information on how those are made, you'd probably never touch them again.
Don't see.
But anything that is pre-seasoned or breaded, you want to avoid those things because invariably, again, they have those salts for flavoring and fake flavoring, MSG, other other things in there that your body really doesn't need.
B&H has the best meats.
Yeah, absolutely.
They have
You can
amazing
get local.
grass-fed, local.
Yeah.
The colors are
Yeah.
just amazing.
Yeah, and it's been proven that grass-fed meat is higher in omega-3 fatty acids, so they're good, healthy fats
Nice.
for you. Fish is a bit harder one, and because so many of the fish you can get now are farmed,
Yes.
and farming practices are not always the greatest. You know, lots of fish in a small area, so
Yes.
swimming around in their own,
Yeah.
being fed. I don't know what they feed them. So my choice on the fish would be look for wild caught salmon if you can find it, or haddock is another good example because it's caught in the Arctic and it's actually quite flavorful. It's a white fish and it's quite flavorful when it's from the Arctic.
Which are the ones you always hear about mercury? Which are the ones to avoid for mercury?
Tuna is the top of the list.
Okay.
So I'm afraid those little cans of tuna. The other big problem with tuna is it's severely overfished, and so they're making choices. But tuna is one of those giant fish in the sea, which means it's at the top of the food chain, and so it eats all kinds of other fish, and so yes, the toxins do tend to build up more in those big kind of fish.
Yeah, you don't know what it's eating.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Top of the list. So, but, you know, sad to say that the oceans are becoming more and more polluted. So, you know, although they're trying to do sustainable fishing practices and that doesn't really speak to the quality of the fish.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a bit of a trouble. Nuts and seeds, we can touch on that too. Great because of a source of healthy fats, lots of minerals. Easy to add to things, unless of course you're intolerant to nuts and seeds. But did you know that sesame seeds are an excellent source of calcium?
No, I did not know that.
Yeah. So for you ladies out there who are looking for better sources of calcium other than dairy, nuts and seeds are a good choice. One word of caution though, your body can't access those minerals in nuts, especially the hard nuts like almonds. Although almonds are good to have on your list because they are lower in saturated fat. The problem with their hardness, I mean, imagine a nut really is a seed waiting to grow.
Right.
So they actually contain these inhibitors to keep all that in there and to stop the seed from rotting before the conditions are prime. So really you need to soak those. So any of the hard nuts should be soaked. Another fairly good way around that is roasting them. But again, I would encourage you to always try to find the nuts that are, you know, not seasoned and not salted. They can be roasted or roast your own.
So raw nuts soaked is really the best way to go.
Yeah, because then your body can access the minerals much more easily, right? Because it breaks those inhibitors. And of course, include live foods in your diet, because talking about supporting the body means supporting all those microbes in your gut. It's those microbes, like I said earlier, my favorite subject, and I can go off on a tangent with that, but the microbes need to be fed and supported. A lot of them are transient, so they're in your body for a short time and they do their job and then they're out.
Yeah.
Important that you include a diverse variety of live cultures in your diet. So yogurt is the most common one that people know. Trouble is, yogurt really only has 2 or 3 kinds of bacterial culture. A much better choice would be kefir, which is also a fermented milk, but it does come in what I prefer, a coconut milk kefir. Has up to 32 different kinds of flora in it. Great for helping the gut, helping digestion, helping you absorb that nutrients, because they all contribute to digestion and breaking down and absorption of foods.
My daughter loves it in smoothies.
Yeah, perfect way to introduce it to the family is start making smoothies, which, you know, can be fruit and vegetables and whatever. I don't generally recommend putting vegetable matter with any dairy type things, but fruit and dairy, sure. Juices and vegetable is usually a better combo. Other live foods could include sauerkraut. True sauerkraut is a fermented vegetable. Kimchi is another one. If you like spicy foods, kimchi is fermented vegetables. Kombucha is a fermented tea, again, rich in about 11 different kinds of microflora, good bacteria. Diverse flora in your gut is super important for overall health, especially your immune system. Because really, it's what's going on in our gut that provides about 70% of our immune strength. So in times that we're struggling with, like now, really important to consider that aspect of supporting the body. What else do I have here? Okay.
So if someone's watching,
Yes,
and they are interested in coming to see you, they're feeling maybe overwhelmed, depleted, what can they expect from a visit from you? What would happen if they came to see you?
one-on-one visits, of course, is my preference, specifically if you have, you know, a variety of issues going on and you're not sure what the cause is. Some people come to me, you know, very specifically. I want to lose weight.
Right.
You know, or, you know, I need to be more regular.
Yeah.
like it can be very specific. Invariably, I find out that there's a number of things going on, and again, I approach it holistically in terms of trying to make suggestions. And we are part of a great network here in the Kemptville area for other resources for helping with other parts of what might be going on in an individual's life. But generally, if someone is approaching me and is looking for support, generally I do a background information so I can get that big picture, and I get them started on a 1-week food log. Because for me I can't look at an individual day to really get a picture of what's going on in a person's diet. But by looking at a week, then I can see where the balance is between the, you know, the carbs and the proteins and the fats, and see if there's a good balance. Generally, you know, I absolutely try to address the concern that individual is coming to me with, but usually it can take 2 to 3 visits. The first one ends up being mostly, you know, an intake where I'm getting to know you, I'm getting to know what your concerns are, I'm getting to know what the issues and symptoms are, and I will give you some verbal suggestions to get started on. But you know, it's usually the second and third visit, that we can fine-tune it into supporting you. And then I like to try and follow up, you know, 6-8 months later to see if you've been able to implement some of my suggestions in terms of diet, exercise, whatever adjustments you need to make. You know, and sometimes there can be something far more complex going on, and I do have questionnaires to help me pinpoint perhaps what the root cause of, say, your digestive issues are. And sometimes it can be a big part is an imbalance in what's going on in the gut. So we need to address that and get rid of the bad and encourage the good. So, you know, it can be fairly involved. But I do also offer, in the past, I've done a live foods workshop. I was going to do one in the spring, and then all this COVID business started happening. But I do hope to do some more of that this winter. Learning about live foods, it's a hands-on workshop where you come and actually, you know, start to make stuff and you get to sample to encourage you to increase those live foods we talked about earlier. I'm always happy to come and talk like I am with you, because it is all about education. Absolutely, educating people. You know, in the end, wouldn't you feel more ready to take control of your own health and your own concerns by having the knowledge to be proactive,
Yeah.
right, and to
Yeah.
move forward. So that's how I really, really try to help people. You know, there's lots of things, and I do get into, you know, everything from suggesting recipes. If you're really struggling with meal planning, I can do a meal plan for you. I do have a program that I put together, which includes, you know, a daily stretch, a daily gratitude, making suggestions for food to follow. It depends on what that individual is really needing and looking for, right? You know, and in the case of mamas out there, you know, this is all great stuff to learn and then to be able to pass on to your kids, because those are life skills that they're going to need.
Yes.
Absolutely. You know, and so part of those solutions and part of those suggestions for helping you mamas out there to cope better and to move forward, you know, include your kids, embrace them, and teach them as much as you can learn, they can learn, you know, and that's great stuff they'll be passing on, you know, down the road too, and make use of.
You were telling me about at some point that you had gone and you were cooking with a client. You had actually gone in and cooked with
I did.
a client.
Yeah. She was just a lot going on in her life and was a bit overwhelmed and sort of didn't know where to start. So, you know, top of my list for making it easier in the kitchen is one pot meals. So yeah, I actually went and we tossed together all the ingredients for a good healthy stew and a homemade soup. Those are great. Stir fry soups, casseroles, one pot dishes, and you can make extra and, you know, divide it and keep some for another meal, or you know. So again, that's part of, you know, although you got to put time into chopping up your veggies and whatever, you can always prepare, you know, take an hour one day and prepare a whole bunch of the hard veggies, not so much things like peppers and cucumbers, but all the hard veggies. Take the time to prep that enough for 2 or 3 days, and then you can make these one pot meals and you know, keep it simple.
It smells so good in the house too.
It does. So, you know, overall, I'm definitely about encouraging live whole foods. Make sure you include in that herbs and spices. You know, if you're trying to wean yourself off the taste of pre-prepared foods, use fresh herbs, use spices. Go out, buy yourself a recipe book. I mean, I know there's so many. My daughters are great fans of, you know, I'm going to look that up online. But it's one recipe. I like the tactile part of having a recipe book and being able to flip through it and go, oh yeah, I have all these ingredients. Hey, that's not too hard. I can do that. You know? So having a vegetarian, because I absolutely encourage, start with vegetables in your meal planning and then add meat, not the other way around. It's so easy to flip through, and you know, one day I was at Chapters and I going out this door and hey, there's a big bin here of, you know, reduced, and I came across this vegetarian cookbook and I love it. I've done so many recipes in that book. It's you know,
you can always
it's
add
great.
the meat
Absolutely,
after if you want.
Absolutely, if you want to. Yeah, it doesn't mean you have to become vegetarian by any means. You know, I really believe there's a place for meat in our diets. You know, provided your digestion's working well. So did I answer that question? What the client is to expect?
Yes. So you'll take your time getting to know the person thoroughly, so that you have a holistic understanding of what's happening.
Right.
And then you'll start with the plan.
That's right.
Start to plan stuff out with them. So if somebody is watching this and they're interested, how do they get a hold of you? How do they reach you?
Easy to reach me either by phone or support at wholesomeapproach.com. Check out my website. It's getting a bit outdated, I do admit, but hey, all the basic information's there. There's a services page, there's a contact page which has my phone number on. But yeah, or reach out to me through support at wholesomeapproach.com. I might not have all the answers for what it is that you're concerned with, but I can certainly help you, work through some of the steps to getting back on track. I really believe it makes sense for people to have the knowledge of how to support your body properly, and then your body does the work for you. And what does it do best? Helps you to stay healthy and alive, right? So maintaining life. So my little closing thing here is, motivation through education. I really believe if you have the knowledge, then you're motivated to be proactive in staying well.
Yes, I agree with that. I think a lot of people don't know what to do, and that's why they want to be healthier, but then there's this gap between they want the desire and the actual plan.
Putting it into action.
So, okay, I want to be healthier, but I'm hungry right now and I don't know what to do, so I'm going to have, the donut and coffee. So, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, my pleasure, and thank you for inviting me, and I'm so pleased that you're doing these little interviews. I think it's wonderful.
Yes, I'm enjoying them. I'm learning from them, too.
Excellent. Thanks very much.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care, all you mamas.